First step is to take a sheet of copper. This is 24 gauge. And I've discovered that I really like working with 24 gauge. 22 is a little too thick. Anything thinner doesn't hold up as well. And I want you to see 24 gauge is flexible but not very malleable until you anneal it. And so we need to anneal this. Now I've got two different torches that I use. One is a little micro blazer torch that you can actually use like for a creme brulee or something like that. This wouldn't heat up this amount of metal well enough to anneal it. And but it works really well for sterling silver and that sort of thing, and smaller work, like if I'm doing soldering or brazing together a jump ring. That works well. But I'm going to bring up the big guns. This is just you know, you can get it at sporting goods stores and hardware stores. It's butane torch. This is a head that I got off of Amazon that connects to it really nicely. And you just turn the gas on, pull the trigger, and you've got a nice hot flame. Now it'll take a little while to heat this up to a dull red glow, which is what we're looking for in order to anneal, which just means it changes the molecular structure of the copper and it softens it, so it's easier to work with. So I'm going to keep heating, and once it gets up to the right temperature, then I'll turn this back on. And I think we're getting pretty close. Yeah, I think it probably takes about 5 minutes, I think, to heat up a piece of metal, a 24 gauge copper this big. If you want it to go more quickly, you can always use a smaller piece. But, and you know, in no way am I saying that I'm any kind of expert in metal smithing jewelry. I just wanted to show you how I go about making the jewelry that I make, so you can have a better understanding as far as the amount of time and effort that goes into it. Everything I've learned, I've just learned from watching YouTube videos or some DVDs that I've gotten from online. So anyway, I'm sure I make lots of mistakes and do things in ways that other people don't do. One thing I have learned though is that you want to use your torch in your non-dominant hand and always have something in your dominant hand, just so you're never tempted to actually touch the metal. Okay, here we're getting that sort of dull red glow. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's what you're looking for to anneal. And so I'm just kind of moving the torch slowly over every part of the metal, and I'm seeing that red glow when I remove the flame. Now the hottest part of the flame is past that blue cone, and so that's if you go down further, I don't know if you can see, but there's a dark spot that happens. Oh yeah, hopefully you can see that glow. So I think we're done with the annealing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the torch, just turn off the gas. And now you'll hear the quench when I put this in my bucket of water. Yeah, it's hot, so you have to be careful. That's why it's always nice to have a handy-dandy fire extinguisher very close by. Just wanted to show you, this is what it looks like, the copper looks like after it's been annealed. You can see there's a lot of like a fire scale, and it turns kind of a, I don't know, salmon-y color. But what's interesting I wanted to show you is how much easier it is to bend. See, I can do that just with my finger. where when it's not annealed, um, it's flexible but not malleable, and now it's really malleable. So, but the more you work it, then you work hard in it, and you have to repeat the annealing process sometimes throughout the work. So I'm cutting out some blanks here. I've already cut a few different sizes. Half-inch, now this is 3/4 inch. I'm using a brass hammer so I don't damage the cutting things. Can't remember what they're called exactly right now. Sometimes it can be kind of difficult to get them back out. I've got a couple different sizes of blanks here that I cut out with my round cutting die, and this is 24 gauge annealed copper. Now I also, just with steel wire from Ace Hardware, little plug for Ace, made some just little spirals, little shapes that I can use to create some patterns in my blanks. And so for instance, I think in these, what I'm going to do is just put that over that small curve, and then I'm going to take my jeweler's hammer, and being careful not to hit my finger, which I've done many, many times before, I'm going to go ahead and put a little, you can see hopefully that there's a little bit of a pattern. Now it's slipped around, and that's okay. I don't care. It's kind of a little happy mistake, I guess, but not really a mistake. I'm not sure you can make mistakes doing this, and I think maybe that's why a lot of people don't try. So these will be different from each other, and that's okay too. That one's got a little bit more of that spiral showing. And what will happen is that these patterns will show up really well when I use liver of sulfur later, and they'll really pop those patterns. So that's a couple patterns for some earrings, and I think on these bigger ones, these 3/4, I'm going to use this square kind of spiral, and I'm going to try and keep it in place a little bit better. Well, that didn't come out so good. I think what I'm going to do is put it back on there and maybe use the ball peen end to get some of that center. There we go. So let's put that one on there. Do that, and then come back in and get some of that center. Okay, that'll be good. Flatten that out a little bit. Good. Okay, before I punch holes and start making the actual earrings, I'm going to make sure there aren't any sharp edges on the copper. And so this is not too interesting, but it's an important step so that you have a nice edge on everything, and it just will look that much more professionally done. So make sure all your edges are smooth and you don't have any little ragged sharp pieces. Okay, I've sanded down all my edges, and with a file and with some 320 grit sandpaper. And now I've decided what direction, which is top and bottom, for each pair of these earrings. And so I'm going to take a little magic marker and just mark a spot that I'm going to punch a hole in. And I'm actually going to punch a hole top and bottom. So I'm just kind of eyeballing this, but at least I'll have the magic marker dot to guide me when I punch the hole. Little hole punch out here. And I'm going to turn it maybe upside down, I'm not sure, but because there's a hole on this side and then the punch is on this side. And I want to hold it so I can actually see that magic marker. So I'm going to punch all the holes and then go back and clean up that burr that leaves, and then we'll be ready to assemble. Okay, they cleaned up really nicely with the copper bright, and as you can see, everything's pretty hard on your fingers. So much for a manicure, huh? Now I'm going to use a liver of sulfur gel. You just put a drop of it in a container and add some hot water, which I happen to have an instant hot water tap. And so I'm going to go do that, and then I will bring them back and you can see what they look like before and after you kind of clean them up. Okay, this is what they look like after about 5 seconds in that liver of sulfur bath. They get that copper oxidation. So now what I'm going to do to start cleaning this up is I'm just going to use a little kitchen scour pad kind of thing. I've just cut one of them up so it's not quite so awkward to use, and get some of that black off of there. So I'll do that on all 4. Then I'll show you what's next. Okay, now I'm going to take a little Pro Polish pad. This one's obviously been used a little bit, but if you use this, these Pro Polish pads are awesome. I don't know what is in them, but they're like a little spongy pad, and they really clean things up nicely. So okay, so there's the front. You can tell it's a lot shinier and cleaner, but the liver of sulfur is still down in those embossed marks made by the steel wire. Okay, now I've got these cleaned up with the Pro Polish pad, and now I'm going to put a little, it's a microcrystalline wax called Renaissance. It's a little expensive, but a little bit goes a super long way. And what this will do is just help keep them from discoloring quite as fast. I mean, copper is copper, so it's naturally going to react to the environment and react to you when you put it on your skin. So now I've got some wax on there, and I'm just going to kind of buff it with the paper towel, and you can see we've got a nice shiny, interesting piece for the earrings. Okay, now we're going to add some dangles, and so I'm going a little blingier with the bigger pair and a little more traditional with some turquoise on the small pair. I have needle nose pliers that I've just put some random marks on, and you'll see why later, and same with some round nose pliers, little marks on there, just to try and keep things consistent. So we'll go ahead and I'll pick up this one, and what I'm going to do a wire wrap, so I want to leave enough space to actually wrap. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in that second mark and then bend it almost 90 degrees. Not, maybe not quite, but almost 90 degrees at that second mark. And I'm going to go ahead and come and do the same thing there. Got that second mark and bend it almost at 90 degrees. Now I've got the same amount of space to do the wire wrap with. So now I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. Now what I'm doing, I'm placing it on that third mark, and I'm going to bring that wire around like that until it touches. Now I'm going to reposition my pliers and bring it all the way around like that. Now what you can do, still holding it, is now you can start wrapping that wire around. You want to just try and keep it as close as possible. And so there's a pretty good start to that wrap, and you can see it's got a nice curvature there. All right, same here. And that third, bring it around, reposition, all the way back around, do the wrap. Okay. All right, so there's that. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the small pair. So I wanted to show you, sometimes your loops get a little cock-wallaby. Sometimes they turn out really nicely, like this one, and but sometimes they get a little off, like this one. So what I wanted to show you is that you don't despair, because you just take your pliers and kind of coax it back into the right place, and you'll see that this wrap is not very good. But you can take your little needle nose pliers and kind of coax that back into place as well. So you can just mess with it until it looks the way you want it to, which is going to be something a little bit more like that one. So, all right, and then you're going to take your little clippers, and you have a little tail here. You want to use the flat side of the clipper to create a clean end. Oops, my little bead is turning. To create a clean end there. And then take your pliers and kind of press that down into the wire wrap so it's not sticking out and doesn't catch on anything. So I'll do that with all of them. All right, now we're ready to put the actual earring wires on. And again, I've got just a container here with a bunch of different kinds that I have purchased. Some people make their own wires. I don't know, this is one of those things that I think I'd rather just purchase than try and make myself, because they're so inexpensive. I've got two different kinds here, and I guess it's a matter of personal preference what you like. But I think with these larger ones, I'm going to use this one. Don't really have a particular reason why. But on these, you slide it through, and now I'm just going to pinch that closed a little bit so it wouldn't be likely to come off on itself or by itself. So slide that through and pinch it closed just a little bit. Okay. And now with these have the same sort of jump ring configuration. So I'm going to use two different pair of pliers and do that twist open, not pull, but twist. And then make sure I get the front on correctly. Go ahead and twist it closed. Sometimes these get a little cock-wallopy. So there, that's nice. Do this last one and then we're done. Got a couple pair of unique, one-of-a-kind, embossed copper earrings. Okay, get that closed. All right, so now we've got this pair and we've got this pair.